this computer. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. How's it going?
Happy New Year.
Okay, we didn't get Dean the memo about the sunglasses. Sorry about that, Dean. But
Well, let's just
All
pretend.
good.
Let's pretend these are those glasses that change color when you're outside.
oh, I see.
Yes.
And
Okay,
they're
but
just
I'm
clear.
inside now and it's okay. Yes, they're
Okay,
clear.
so they're clear. Well, our future's so bright in 2025. We got to wear shades. And this episode is about being charming, developing social skills, recognizing social cues. And so we thought we'd be too cool for school in the first couple of minutes here. Hat tip to Jonathan, who last week reminded us what cool looks like. And so here we go. And well, I'm gonna get ready to share our slides. Have some thoughts when we're done about these tips that we'll include in the notes in the a YouTube video about ways to make yourself socially comfortable, recognize social cues. And so when we come back, we'll be sunglass free. But here we go. Now, here. Okay, here we are. And this background today for these slides is a hat tip to Justin, who gave us our cool cultural aesthetic here. So today we're reviewing charm and social skills, how to get along with people. There's so much neuro divergent folks around today, for whatever reason you want to ascribe, that it's not uncommon for people to ask me in coaching sessions, that I'm sure you guys too, uh, how do I even do that? Like, how do I even make this friend at work? Or how can I read them in the room? And so this is a little tune-up to remind us that these things can be learned. You don't have to be born knowing how. So your level of cool may vary, but some of these things we can learn. Okay, so icebreakers. These are ways that as you walk up to a group of people talking, or people are gathered and they're waiting for the event to start, the game to begin, whatever's happening, you're in a group of people and you want to be having conversations with them. A genuine smile is a wonderful icebreaker because you appear friendly and open to conversation. Other people will walk up and talk with you if you can share a genuine smile. A simple compliment. So if these are people you don't really know or haven't seen in a while, it could be something like, wow, those are cool sunglasses, Jonathan. So a simple compliment will set the table that this is friendly and that you're open to conversation. A fun confession. You see sometimes people that are charming will open up with a fun confession. So it might be something like, I need to give you fair warning. I haven't had my first cup of coffee yet, so I might be a little less coherent than you normally find me. So, oh, well, let's go get you some coffee then. So a fun little confession about what's happening for you. Easy eye contact. So, eye contact is important to practice. Too much makes you seem like you're the Boston Strangler, and too little makes it seem like you might have a problem with shyness. And so, practice easy eye contact where you're listening to them with eye contact, but not boring into their skull with your attention. So, get that rhythm right for yourself. Listen more than you talk. I think we've all had the experience as coaches that when someone is actually listened to all the way through their whole thought, they're so relaxed and so much more open because somebody listened to them. And so you may not be able to listen to them for 3 hours, but listen more than you talk is a charming tactic. It's also necessary for coaches. And then showing respect to servers and people around you, whether you're opening the door for a woman with kids in a stroller, or whether you're thanking your server for putting the food at your table, showing respect to servers and people around you, cashiers, bus drivers, whoever it is another way to be charming. People think, that's a good person. I'm okay and safe with that person. They're showing respect to these other strangers doing a job. And then ask for easy support. This is next level charming. And I once worked with a man who said the easiest way that he could make friends with people that had real money was to, in the first 10 minutes of their first conversation, ask them for a small favor. And that seems counterintuitive, but asking them for a small favor, taking my wife to Monterey for a little anniversary getaway. Do you have a favorite restaurant down there that I could make reservations to? I'm just now thinking of it. And if you know a place, that would be great. A small favor like that, because it builds the bonds of friendship outside of the deal talk or whatever else you're going to talk about. People are usually willing to offer easy support. And now there's your first almost instant bond with that person. So we'll go to our next slide. I know this is a lot, but I know we'll reflect on all of it. Okay, romance is where a lot of people talk about how to be charming. And I think it has more value to be genuinely charming than pickup artist charming. So some people can see right through that, particularly women who are screening offers for someone to buy them a drink or take them out or something. So first, it's important to be yourself. When you're authentically yourself, other people can read that right away, particularly people who are familiar with meeting a lot of people. They can see who's pretending and who's being themselves. Monitor body language. There's a lot of tools on the internet that give ideas about what body language is saying. And so learn about not only the body language you're witnessing, but that you're also unconsciously demonstrating. Limit your questions. I talked with someone on a first date the other day, and his feedback was, I think it was an interrogation. I don't think it was a date. I think I had to pass a test before the food was served. And so some questions are good, but this is not a job interview when you're chatting with people and getting to know them. Allow them to reveal what they want to reveal about themselves. And as you share things about yourself, that opens the door for them to do the same. Manage your boundaries and notice when other people don't manage theirs. Share your interests. And so I was working with someone who got a big new job he's very excited about. He was working remotely. The headquarters were in another state, and he wanted to get to know the team really fast. He wanted to feel comfortable that they got to know him a little bit and he got to know them. So, I mean, we literally worked up a list of things he was interested in. One of them was Pinot Noir. He can talk chapter and verse about Pinot Noir. And so I said, I need 3 sentences right now about your favorite Pinot and why. And did you ever have a Pinot Noir fail? Like, have you ever had one that tasted like salad dressing instead of wine? And it worked. He was comfortable because he was in an area talking about something that was interesting to him. Other people got to know him quickly. Oh, that's the guy that loves Pinot Noir. Yeah, he's working on that project. So it's not as hard as it might seem. Start small. So you're not going to win over the new boss in the first meeting, but make small steps to create connection and then allow your confidence to grow. So again, that's a lot. We have one more slide. Okay, in the workplace, which is the bulk of where I coach people, you can practice active listening. Again, it's especially when you're in a group meeting or around a board table in a conference room, some of the people there may want to be making an effort to show everybody how much they know about the topic. And so what's more highly valued is people who can listen, actually process the information. And then when they ask a question, it's squarely based on the information that was provided. So people can tell you were following, you were listening, and you have some insight with your question. So practice active listening at the workplace. You can share your thoughts, don't be silent. But again, if those thoughts are productively shared because it's around what you've been listening in terms of the presentation, you're adding value in the meeting, and that's highly valued One could say charming behavior in the workplace. So respond positively. And so I think sometimes people are taught by mentors that if you take the other side, if you steel man or straw man an argument, that looks like a power move or something. And typically that's counterproductive. There are some people that can wield that power effectively. Most people cannot, particularly in a new workplace. A lot of people are changing jobs right now. To respond positively first, and then if you have a question or a comment, put that second or third. To remember that coworkers are people too. So they have kids, they go to baseball games, they watch the recent movie in the cinemas. And so have a little bit of small talk around that. And when you're in a new situation, you can get to know what people are interested in. And the next time you see them, you could say, so did you go see the Gladiator movie? Because aren't you into those movies? And they'll be happy you remembered. And now you have something to talk about that's a bonding moment. Stay in your lane reminds you that particularly early in relationships, in a new job, in a new social group, to take in more about who they are than demonstrate who you are. Follow up one-to-one at work so that the bonds deepen. So in the conference room, when you've had an insight you've shared, you can, as the meeting closes, follow up with them. Say, I'm going to send you an email and see if we might, have a one-to-one meeting for 20 minutes because I'd like to know more about that specific topic. I loved your presentation today. And so people feel valued, and in turn, they value you. And the last is an attitude of gratitude, particularly at work. For some reason, there's a trend, mostly among millennials, but not only that, dude, you're lucky to have me. You're lucky that I'm alive and breathing in your cubicle. And you're going to treat me right, give me all the benefits and the perks, or I'm going to bounce. Those people are shown the door. A better way to do this is to be grateful that you have this work opportunity, that you're paying your bills, and maybe you're going to move on to another job, but be grateful for the one that you have while you're there. That is a lot more charming and approachable. Okay, so lots to go there. We're down to our memes, everybody. Okay. Let me move my. Okay, ladies can't resist a man in flannel. So if you're stuck for a fashion choice and you want to be cool, consider flannel. I'm not antisocial. I'm just not user friendly. So if you're feeling a little standoffish and people say, are you antisocial? Oh, no, I'm just not fully user friendly yet. I love this picture of the pants. This was so funny to me. The pants look like they have eyes, suspiciously looking at what chair am I draped over? Whose house is this? How did I get here? When your pants are suspecting something. And finally, you're creating problems in your head again. Stop that. So much of what, feeling uncomfortable about things has to do with stories being repeated in our head about other times that we were uncomfortable. The last 3 of these mixers I went to didn't go well. Stop that. Have a plan, execute that plan, and then you'll be surprised how smoothly it goes. So, that was a lot of information. Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
Thoughts about social cues, social skills, and charm?
Yeah, sure. Should I keep the glasses on or should I
Whatever
take
you
them
want
off?
to do. It's pretty charming, but whatever you want to do.
Step 1 of charm school, put glasses on. Step 2, engage. No. So yeah, charm is, I think it can be really helpful to you in life, but I don't think you have to be super charming.
Agreed.
I think like if you just learn a few little tricks, like if you just have sort of a thin
Mhm,
veneer on the outside to just kind of smooth over social situations,
mhm,
I think that can help a lot.
mhm,
Like at work, if you go out and meet people at a bar or a club or something,
mhm,
dating, whatever, if you just have like just a few things, like even if you just like every day you just like look up a joke, Just, you have one new joke every day. And then if you talk to people like at your work, you just have some jokes you can tell. There's like simple things like that that you can do that I think help a lot. And one thing that I think is really interesting, Dean, you brought up the point when we were talking before we started recording. Yeah, some people just think they're just not charming. They don't have that ability. It's just not in them. What I've noticed is if you look at comics, I think they're very interesting in
Like
this
stand-up
regard.
comedians, you mean?
Yeah, stand-up comedians. Like I've noticed there's a lot of comics who have turned their qualities that you would traditionally think are not charming into their charm. Like many comics have turned their depression into their charm. Like they turned that into humor.
Yeah.
That's their whole shtick now. Like that's what draws the crowd. Is like them. Like honestly, they turned their bitterness into their charm. Like they just complain the entire set, like for an hour or two about stuff going on in the world, stuff going on in society, and everyone loves it. Everyone's laughing. Like so, like guys like maybe Bill Hicks, maybe you could go to Alex Jones. So there have been comics who have turned like their rage into their charm. Like the things that they're so frustrated about, they go on and on about it. That's what draws the crowds in. They want to hear them rant. Like there have been rant comedians. They just go on rants, like maybe George Carlin. Just go on rants for just an hour or two. And so I think like whatever qualities you have, there's ways to turn that into charm. You can like channel that energy into a way where people will actually enjoy that. So I think that's interesting. Another thing I think is in today's world, I think it's good to like if you're gonna kind of try to charm people or like sort of connect to people, it's sort of good to charm, but then do it with some detachment. Because what I've noticed in the culture today, if you bond with someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that much. Like you could like feel like you have really good rapport with a girl, you're talking for a while, it's going well. She might just like ghost you the next day. She doesn't care. So like you kind of have to charm, but then like detach. Like just don't think that this like means anything. It doesn't necessarily mean we bonded or like we have a thing that's going to keep going on now. Even with friends, even with coworkers, whatever. I think it's good to create pleasant social interactions to like help things go smooth, but it doesn't always mean what you would think it means. It doesn't necessarily mean you're friends now, or it doesn't necessarily mean this girl wants to go on more dates with you now. Like even if they seem like they're into it. So it's good to kind of like charm, but also just not be attached to the outcome, like not worry about it. I think that's good. Another thing that I found I think this is really interesting. There's a concept called reverse charm, which I think is so interesting. So instead of trying to like say all these interesting, funny, entertaining things to charm the other person, what you do is you let them speak and you just take a lot of interest in what they're saying. And a lot of times the other person will find you charming, even though you're not the one doing all the work of the conversation. Like if someone's talking about themselves, just be like, oh, wow, that's so interesting. Tell me more. Like if you just show that interest in them, you're enthusiastic about what they want to talk about. You ask them questions about themselves or about what they're interested in. At the end of that interaction, they'll be like, man, it was great talking to you, you know? But like you weren't like charming yourself. Like you weren't saying all these amazing, funny things. You're just showing a lot of enthusiasm in what they're saying. So you could say that's like reverse charm, which is cool. So anyone can do that. You know, anyone can do that, even if they don't think they're that charming or whatever. You can always just show some interest in what other people are saying or give people recognition for like the positive aspects of what they're saying or what they're doing in life. That's like a real easy way to just make conversations like smooth and pleasant. And yeah, I think taking this a little bit more abstract, spiritual level, this is something you can try. I think this is a good exercise. If you, whether you look at it from like a Christian type perspective or more of like a Eastern, type perspective, like in the Bible it says, we're made in the image of God. Some of the Eastern ideas say that everything is God. Um, you can do this exercise. You can try seeing other people as having a divine spark, just like you do. In some sense, I've done this exercise before. Like they have a soul somehow created by God, just like you do. And when you actually look at people that way, you will start to see more amazing things about them. And you'll want to engage with them more. You'll kind of enjoy their company more. And I think that's a key to being charming is literally just enjoying the other person.
Mhm.
If you're just enjoying their presence,
Mhm.
they will find you more charming. And that's kind of like that's a spiritual like process you can use, but it's also something that could help increase charm or like, just the pleasantness of interactions.
Mhm.
Um, so that's something cool you can try. And also another little tip is just remembering little details about people. People always appreciate that. Like if you just mention something and then someone tells you back that little detail you said, you're like, oh wow, you cared. Like you remembered that little detail.
Mhm.
So that's another tip. So that's all my stuff. So I'm gonna jump in on that.
Very good. No, I appreciate that. I don't know, Jonathan Dean, would you like to go next and just talk about either your experience about the experience of people who are charming in the workplace or social situations, or when you needed to help people with social cues or social skills?
Well, I'll say a couple of things. If that Brian brought up comedians. And I
Mhm.
think part of what we can learn from that is that actually what it means to be charming can look a lot of different ways. So I think one of the most charming comedians I've ever encountered is to go back all the way back to even the 60s and listen to the way Bob Newhart did stand up.
Yes.
Exactly the way he did in his television shows, which
Yeah.
is totally deadpan, no
Dry.
energy,
Mm-hmm.
but all of that made him magnetic. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think too, I think probably people need to be realistic about where their skill levels are.
Of course.
And that that charm is in my view,
Mm-hmm.
a step above standard social smoothness.
Yes.
Right. So
Uh,
there's like a kind of way that you can negotiate relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a way to take that to, and so when I say charm,
Mm-hmm.
I mean the ability to sort of inspire interest in others that is not even just an intellectual interest, but a kind of magnetic pull toward yourself.
Yes.
And I really think that a lot of that is about developing your ability to be honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
as you feel the connection to that person.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of us, most of the time, are interacting with people and we're kind of trying to deny or we're muting our awareness of the quality of the intangible quality of that interaction because we're anxious or we're lost in wishful thinking, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more you can kind of work on your own security, you can often get a sense of what effect is my behavior having on this person right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the stronger your sense of that, the more you are able to sort of to behave in ways that increase the gravitational pull of your personality, which is what we mean by charm, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly the key ingredients there, and I think Brian touched on some of these, are curiosity. Like, I actually want to know you, right? Um, and I think so much of it is empathy. So going back to the Newhart thing, really, stand-up comedians probably have to be highly empathetic in one sense because they have to be able to imagine themselves sitting in an audience looking at themselves, and they have to be able to sort of totally project what would it be like to be my audience member. And unless they can do that, they can't be funny. And so developing a certain kind of empathy for the other person's experience of you, I think, is really key to increasing that gravitational pull. Curiosity, empathy, and there was one other. I think both of those then allow you to get a good sense of what kind of energy do you need to bring to this interaction. There are, in fact, some situations where being charming is inappropriate.
Of course.
So,
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
so you might want to think about what are those? So if I'm in a coaching session with someone who's really struggling with an emotional issue, not the time for me to bring a lot of high energy humor.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think maybe one thing that's helpful is to think of charm as a tool in your social bag.
Yes.
And just really developing your ability to monitor the energy of your connections with other people will let you know when is it time to use that tool and when is it not. And I think for a lot of people, they have like no awareness of that energetic exchange in interactions.
I think
And they
that
just,
practice can be helpful. Yeah, I
yes.
think that's
So
why having these
basically,
goals.
a lot of people are trying to write a symphony with one note.
Mm-hmm.
Every interaction is the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I
Those are my
think
initial thoughts.
sometimes humor can be biting and that can be charming. There was a old joke, and it was, I think, an actress in like the 50s, and they were talking about how all the starlets would gossip about other starlets, and this line was, if you can't say something good about everybody here, come sit by me. Because
All right.
we're going to roast all of them together. I'm right there with you. So that's like a humorous confession that starts with like scolding and then it flips and you're like, okay, what was she thinking with that orange blouse this morning? What did she turn the lights out and then get dressed? And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes there can be this humorous kind of confession and that gives you a bonding moment. But, Jonathan,
The oh,
oh no, please go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of humor, one thing that I have found very helpful that I found helpful years ago is I think I actually read a book on writing jokes
Mm-hmm.
and to learn to communicate in this is just a very practical tip for being more charming. Learn to communicate in the form of a joke. So a joke has a form. It is a setup and a punchline. And the punchline reverses some understanding that the setup, it's like the thing, like if you can't say something about everybody good here, it implies that you're going to follow up with
Scolding.
be quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that reversal, and that reversal is what we think is funny. And so just learning to incorporate that form into some of your communication and just thinking, well, I want to tell this person something. How could I lead into it in a way that would make them assume the opposite? Right? It's just for that moment you can think about how do I communicate in setups and payoffs. So that's a practical tip.
Yeah, very good. Jonathan, I was going to talk with you about confidence. Because I think particularly for men in social situations, a one man will take the measure of another man, or women will take the measure of a man if it's in a like social or dating environment. And so having some confidence can, improve the interaction results by 100% or 200%. But do you think that confidence plays a role in the people that you coach with? And then your thoughts about everything we've said so far.
I am actually lucky that I got to learn something that I really needed to learn when I went to this ashram in India, which basically it taught me to have clarity before confidence. I was the opposite. I had a lot of confidence, but not much clarity. So when you have that combo, it gets tricky. Because you have confidence. If you just have confidence, that's easy to have. If someone doesn't have, I can show them that it's so easy to have. Confidence is no problem. Clarity is, it takes a lot of work.
Bigger job, bigger job.
Yes, clarity is a whole different universe. But confidence is necessary. At some point, you're gonna have to need it, because everything that you do that it's worth of something or that is of value is going to be, at some point, is going to be attacked for so many different angles that it's kind of like a test. Like, how much do you believe in this ideal or in yourself or in whatever that it is that you're so confident about? It's going to be attacked from so many, like the most random things are going to happen. And some of them can be very extreme. So if you're not confident that you can do that, or like confident about your beliefs or anything that you're confident about, if you are actually not as confident as you should, it's going to be very hard to do any, like the most simple things are going to be so difficult. Like, I know some humans, they're not even confident to like ride like a bicycle. I'm like, so that can be like an extreme scenario for someone that doesn't even know how to ride a bicycle, and they don't want to try because they don't feel confident. So those are like baby steps. But the clarity will be like, show them how to use the bicycle before they get into the bicycle, so then they can do tricks with the bicycle. When it comes to charming, I see charm as, it can be simplified. Like, if I wanted to teach someone charm, I'll be like, just treat everybody you interact with the same way you would like to be treated, regardless if they're like skin color, if they're overweight or too much or too little weight. Like, regardless if it's a woman, if it's a man, if it's a dog, if it's a plant on the street, like, just try it for like, it's possible that one whole day is too much, but let's say try it for like 15 minutes, see what happens. And then the next thing you know, the flowers, it starts like actually sending you like the smell, the tree is behaving. It's like every tree you go under is caressing your skin, and everything is so pleasant. So that can be the easiest way to teach someone how to be charming, is like, just treat everything you interact with today, especially like alive beings or like humans, just treat them exactly the way you would like to be treated. Like, like if you're going to open or hold the door for a man or a woman, just regardless, don't think about if this one is ugly, this one is pretty, just do it. And that is like the easiest way to get confidence when it comes to social interactions, because you're not doing any tactics, you're not doing any like, oh, I forgot step 2. What the fuck was the number 2? This guy said number 2, and then people go, no, just hold the door, anything that you can think of, and it becomes extremely easy to have charming skills. I also believe that there are levels. Once you become charming, there are levels of how charming can you possibly be. Obviously, some people, they just want to learn the basics, and that's fine. It's respectable. But then you can always go like God level, like celestial being level of charm. And but it's a long process. Not everybody wants to spend their lives developing some skills. Some other people want to become athletes, which actually have an extreme level of charm because they're just being themselves. So focusing on yourself, it helps you a lot when it comes to like charming stuff. What was the other, when it comes to dating and relationships? I mean, that one is a must have. You cannot not have that one. It's you must have. If you're not going to be like a monk or like a priest somewhere in a cave, you must have the basic levels of social skills. You don't have to become a professional, a stand-up comedian, but you must have the basics. And we can teach you how to do that. Like, we have our different ways. I have my ways. and then
Mhm.
Dean has their ways, Brian and Mirna, and all the other coaches here in the platform. We have our ways to teach you how to do those things, because I know it sounds challenging at the beginning. I mean, trust me, I come from like not speaking one language to actually like download the whole, not the whole dictionary, but like a lot of it. So yeah, it makes you charming. Learn one word per week. It will make you more charming.
Well, I know one of the challenges, especially in the workplace, are people from other cultures who come to work in the US. And I know, Brian, you've done the reverse. You've left the US and worked in other cultures and been around other people. And so those social cues are different in different cultures. And what it means from where you're from and what it means where you are may not be the same thing. So giving yourself permission to learn the social cues of where you are, to ask the questions, if you have a new friend in the new place, to have the confidence to say, this keeps happening to me. Is this just standard here? Because we don't do this back where I come from. And just learn and understand. So that's a small favor to ask for someone. It's a bonding moment with the someone you're asking, can you tell me why? And so, would it be normal for me to adopt that behavior so that I fit in? Or did they presume, because I'm obviously not from here, that I would not be participating in that, cultural moment, whatever it is that people do? So, learning the social cues, understanding when you might be misaligned somehow for whatever reason, and working with someone who you have permission to ask the questions of, whether that's a coach or a mentor or a new friend. I helped someone get a giant new job, and I was very confident she could pull this off. She was not very confident. And she'd been underappreciated for a few years in her current job, which chips away at your confidence. And so she was kind of operating at a confidence deficit through the erosion of how she was being treated in her current job. But she had more than the capability to do this. So I'm talking with her on the way to the, panel interview for this big new job. And I just kept reiterating all of the milestones she's achieved. And you made the cut for the interview. So they've seen something in you they like, because they set aside time in the day of 7 people to talk to you. So they don't think they're wasting their time having you come in for the interview. So it's not a waste of time. They know what they're doing. But she had very simple questions like, okay, we get up and leave a meeting room. I'm not sure how to make small talk in the group as we go to the elevator, and then who to sit next to when we go to the restaurant for lunch before we come back to the offsite, boardroom for the rest of the meeting, the workshop, whatever it is. I don't know how to do the transition comfortably. I feel uncomfortable and awkward in the transition. I was confident nobody else was feeling her awkward and uncomfortable. That was internally what was happening for her. But we practiced. Okay, we're going to get up and leave the table. You're going to put your hips in parallel with my hips, and we're walking to the elevator together. You keep pace with how fast I get there. And then you're going to tell me the show you binged over the weekend on the way to the elevator. Do you watch fill in the blank name of the show? Boy, when I was folding laundry, I watched 3 back to back. And then be quiet and let them fill the silence until you get off the elevator and walk to the restaurant. So sometimes it may seem hard to admit for clients or people, that I find this part of this awkward, the transition moments, or how to be the first one to say something in a meeting, or how to preface, I appreciate what you did, but my opinion is a little bit different. But if you can open up to someone and just ask permission, that's one of those skills. She always now knows how to leave a meeting and get on the elevator. It's never a problem ever again. And she deployed it the first time, worked smoothly. It's off the list of things that she's awkward about. Never again. But you have to choose mentors or coaches or people in your life who will help you with those things, and that you feel comfortable admitting, this one thing I kind of get stuck on. How do you handle this? Any thoughts about that?
I
Asking
can
for help. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to say, I can help someone gain so much confidence so fast just by like reminding them, you do remember you're going to die, right? Like, like, am I the only one here? And then they're like, it's like a shock. But I can give you a lot of confidence. Like, you're going to die. That one, now you know the real truth. So based on that, everything like it drops. Like, what am I going to like? All the other little situations, they become like, I was going to say dust, but now they become more like whipped cream because it's so like soft. Like you can actually eat them if you want because they become like edible pretty much. So, and then once you shake them out of like that the monster of negative thoughts, and then you remind them, we become what we think about, and then you do the process with them. So I'm still finding it's like light years to me that somebody will have a problem starting like an interaction. I don't know if if it makes me not empathetic enough or something, but I find it so difficult. I can go there, but it's so far away. It's like in another galaxy, kind of almost. So in my experience, the humans that I have worked with, they can kind of sense that there's so many dimensions that are unexplored when it comes to their abilities, confidence, charming skills, and then I think it's great because then they know, oh, this is possible, and I'm just starting. Like, this is just the beginning, and that gives a tremendous sense of confidence.
Did you have a thought, Dean?
Well, I was thinking about something an entirely different example.
Okay, great.
I don't know. Are we ready to go with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So on Twitter, I remember a few weeks ago there was some conversation going around among female Twitter users.
Okay.
About men who would contact them in the DMs.
Right.
And the entire message would be, hey.
Yeah.
And
I throwing a baited hook into all the DMs and seeing if any fish bite. Yeah.
I've been told that hey is creepy. Not because I would ever send a hey, but but I think this might be a good baseline for where certainly where a lot of young guys' social skills are. They are whatever we might think of as charming. Okay. Think about romantic comedy you've seen, and every romantic comedy turns on the meet cute.
Yep.
And that the meet cute is the kind of screenwriting term for how the two characters who are going to fall in love get together. How do they meet in the first place? So whatever you think of as a charming meet cute. So when Harry met Sally, they meet when Harry is going to drive Sally across the country, but they meet while Harry is actually kissing his other girlfriend. So that's part of the, tension and charm of it. So whatever you think of as like the really sort of engaging meet cute as one end of a spectrum, and hey as the end of the spectrum that's let's at least say less effective. A lot of guys are on that end of the spectrum where hey is about as much as they can do.
Yeah.
Toward moving toward a kind of charming engagement of other people. And I suppose what we're saying is that there's skills to that can be learned. And
yes.
But I think certainly trying to assess yourself along that spectrum from hey to meet cute is important especially in terms of just initiating relationships with people.
Well, I was going to say to that point, boldness. I've seen a lack of real, like, the bold factor on this, like, on the streets. Like, for example, when I grew up in such a way that the males will see a female that they like, and they will walk up to the woman and be like, "Hey," literally communicating, like, to the point, "I like you," and then in their own way they were going to do the the seduction dance. That's another topic. But the man will initiate, like, he will not be afraid to be rejected. Oops, she said no. Big deal. The guy continues with his day, goes, jumps into the bus, gets off on the next stop. Another girl. He goes, yeah. And then there was that factor, which is like a primal skill that I've noticed it has been lost within the next generations. Even with my generation and older, actually, in all generations, it's across the boards. Like, it doesn't matter if you're, like, old or, like, young. Something happened in this period of time that all of the sudden, like, there's no that boldness. It's rare. It exists, but it's so rare when it happens that just learning that basic primal skill, a lot of men will separate from the rest just by learning that, just one simple skill, and it will put them in the top 85%. But the reality is that there's like somethings in the air, like there's something in the air that it seems like it's keeping them so passive. Like, they're just like, come on, if you send a hey, unless you're someone actually successful, they
Tom
might
Brady
reply
got
to you.
into my DMs and said, hey,
Yes, exactly. If you're that kind of human, yes, you have some odds. And even then, who knows? It might sound sketchy. Like, I don't know, man. If you have so many, why are you sending this one to me? So yes, so learning that, it's like a basic, it's like a primal, it's a primal skill to have. And if you don't have it, you're going to suffer for the rest of your days. So better learn it while you can. And that's why there's so many ways to learn it. And
and
I don't want to.
it can be learned.
Yes, that's the whole point.
It can be learned.
It can be learned, and it can be learned effortless. I mean, some effort involved, but technically, because it's primal, it's like it's in you. You just have to, like, get in touch with it. But it's there.
I think the conversation about women responding to say the outreach is creepy is exactly what men are trying to avoid. They get labeled as some kind of weirdo or creep or stalker or something. And so I think understanding that if the person that you said something innocuous to, like, beautiful day, isn't it? And she decides you're hitting on her and she decides that she has a right now to be nasty to you in return, is to just know that's about her and not about you, and write it off. Okay, you don't know who kicked her cat that morning, right? You don't know what's happened to her in the previous 12 hours that she's responding to this way. You know that, hey, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? Did not warrant a dressing down from the stranger that you were kind to a moment ago. So it's about her and what's going on with her, not about you. And as you say, Jonathan, you have to just let it roll off your back.
And remember that not everyone, but most females, as of right now, they are damaged. So by default, they're going to give you a nasty attitude if you try to approach them in a relationship interest. So also, that is something to learn. That is not personal. That's just how they are, and that's it. There's nothing to do with you. It's them. And at the end, deep down, you can't blame them, because then you remember, but they're so cute, and then you channel your energy and you become charming. Like, there's no way you cannot be, like, if you actually come to the truth, like, okay, women are nasty and I cannot approach them because I feel that they're going to reject me. And then you think, well, what's the alternative? Not to have them on this world. That would be so boring. No, they're too cute.
It's worth working through. And I guess the last thing I wanted to mention, then we can kind of go around the yard here, but is that you don't have to be an extrovert. You can be an introvert and people will find you charming. So whoever you are, what your current skill level is, what your ability to navigate social cues are, you can step those up. You may never be Bob Newhart. You may never be a pickup artist or someone that every person thinks is charming. But people can find you charming when you're authentic, when you actually want to know them, when you see the divine spark in them, when you're willing to, offer a simple compliment and open a conversation. So it is possible to do. It's not as hard as it seems. If you haven't learned it now, you can learn it now to be charming. And so the most charming people that I have met have usually overcome a lot of difficulty. They have been through the barrel in their childhood or in several relationships, and they have just learned how to be a little smoother through survival strategies. And so sometimes the root of how they learned to be charming was difficulty they overcame. And other times people are natural actors or natural comedians, naturally outgoing and magnetic, and people are attracted to that. So you don't have to be the most charming person in the room, but you can be one of them. So, okay, we'll take last thoughts, and then Brian, how do people find you, and any closing thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, last thoughts. I mean, one of the ideas I think some of you brought up is kind of just being authentic can be charming. Just being your real self, that can be its own kind of charm. And I think if it would be great if the culture would move in that direction where everyone would really just be themselves. Because us all being kind of the cookie cutter, all fitting into what society wants, I think that makes everything extremely boring. And I think it causes just a lot of problems in general. So I think if the culture shifted to where we have more of a mindset of like, it's good for everyone to be their authentic selves, and we just kind of accept that. We deal with each person as they are. We find our own way to handle those energies, and we don't try to suppress it all. I think that would be great. Also, like talking about confidence and what you guys were talking about, I think what your foundation of confidence is really important. So, Mom, you mentioned like a woman that you worked with, her confidence had been shaken because people at her work weren't really valuing what she was doing as much as it should have been. So that's the thing. If your confidence is based on, if the foundation, if it's based on other people's approval of your work, it's just always going to be a roller coaster because, I mean, people's opinions change. You got to find some kind of really strong foundation that's like permanent. So, for example, one way that I think of this, and people don't have to think of it this way, but kind of like I was mentioning earlier in the beginning, I mean, if you think of yourself as created by God, like you are a spark coming off the divine eternal flame. In a sense, the fact that you exist means you are validated by God. Like you basically have a right to exist from the creator. Like you are supposed to be created with the qualities that you naturally have. That was God, source, the universe was like, thumbs up, let's do this thing. Like you kind of have that. So if your confidence is based on that, that can't ever be like shaken really. If other people don't like something you did or your work, I mean, if you have that, if your confidence is based on that, you can just always have that. So like it's good to find a stable foundation for your self-esteem or for your confidence. Like if your confidence is based on how much money you make, well, what happens if you lose your job or, you get in a bunch of debt or you get sued and you lose all the money? Like, well, then your confidence is going to be shaken. You're on the self-esteem confidence roller coaster if you base it on those things. So it's better to base it on something like if you're a really good meditator and you can always tap into a sense of peace contentment, well-being within yourself, you could base your self-esteem on that because you can always go back into that, right? It should be based more on something that is a solid foundation that you have like control over.
Good.
Yeah, and then like also like I was just watching, I think this is relevant, an interview with a pro pool player from like the 80s and 90s, this guy named CJ Wiley. And he was talking about he had a match where he was so nervous that he felt like he was shaking as he was playing, like big money, big match. And he was scared to go back and watch the video of it, like on TV. This was when pool was back on like ESPN.
Yeah.
And he said a few years later, I went back and watched, and he's like, you couldn't even tell.
Yeah.
That's how he felt on the inside. But he's like,
you're in your head, like that meme. You're saying
yes,
something in your head. Stop that.
yes, because of the adrenaline and the pressure of like, I think what they're playing for maybe 40 grand or something. But this was like 1980, so that would be like 200,000 now or something, you know. So he was really feeling it, but he's like, my body didn't even look like it was shaking. You couldn't even tell. But he didn't watch that video for years because he was scared to see like he thought he was going to look really nervous, really like, and he was like, no, I look fine. So sometimes people underestimate themselves, or they think they're coming off worse than they actually are. You might actually be a harsher critic on yourself than you actually like really are being. You might be being like extra harsh on yourself. So that's just something to be aware of. And yeah, that would be my final thoughts.
How do people get a hold of you out there in Vietnam?
You can reach me at lifedesign.org or Special K Coaching on Instagram.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you so much. We'll go back in the order we were in. Dean, any final thoughts, and how do people reach you?
Well, I think in terms of improving your social skills, and I think Brian was getting to this, it's essentially ultimately about your relationship with yourself and your ability to amplify your own emotional and relational energy that you're giving to people, and to manage, or not even to manage, but to create deeper emotional impressions with the people that you meet. And you can only do that as you clarify and refine who you are and want to be. And so ultimately, the tip for being more charming is to refine yourself, clarify yourself, and bring that forward.
Yeah, that Jonathan mentioned. Yeah.
People can find me at deanabbott.com or at Dean Abbott on Twitter is the easiest.
Oh, great. Great conversations you're having over on Twitter.
Lots of them. Yep.
Jonathan, any final thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yes, I actually have a final thought. I see clarity and confidence as currency and actual money. So money is real. It has a foundation. It's tangible. And currency, it's a fucking scam. It doesn't exist. It's fake. It's more fake than the monopoly money. But that's how I see confidence and clarity. If you have the base is clarity. That is what I learned, and it's helping me a lot. So I would say clarity first. From there, you can have confidence that you can see clearly. Then you can take the next step with total confidence because you can see. Otherwise, I will actually recommend, if you do not work on clarity, I will recommend to just not take that action because it's going to end up being a disaster. So learn from my mistakes. If you are not confident, it's because you do not have enough clarity. So let's work on the root, which is clarity. From there, we can build as much self-esteem as you want, but first a stable base so that you don't fuck everything up with just having a lot of confidence without the actual base that is going to help you support that confidence. And yes, from there we can help anyone if they are willing to, of course. You can find me on alifedesign.org. Also, Jonathan R Coaching on Instagram, as well as TikTok is the same. Jonathan R Coaching is the
I think
Gmail as well.
your TikTok is mostly in Spanish, so if people want to refer someone to a coach who speaks Spanish.
Yes, also sometimes I forget that it's my first language, you know.
Yeah. So very good. Well, how many times have we met someone and they really knew who they were? You know, you hear phrases like, I'm not that guy that's going to be first in line with the new software or the $1,000 phone. Or I am that guy that needs to be there at the debut. Or I am that guy that followed this band around in the 1980s. It was fun. I wouldn't do it again, but yes, I saw them in 7 cities. So when people speak about their knowledge of themselves, that's very charming. Because, you know, when I get to know this person, I'm going to get to know the real person. I don't have to break through layers of pretending in order to get to know them. So that's very attractive, that level of confidence. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. And I hope you guys endeavor, those of you that are watching, to become a little more socially confident, a little more charming. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.